Fun fact that I just found out, birth control is a carcinogen. Anyways, let's get to reading. You are on your way over right now, because I love you. Just because I didn't want to hang out doesn't mean that I don't love you. I just was reading my book. I'm just going to keep reading my book to you. Come on now.
But at least there's no water source nearby that he can go in. There's a lake. We live directly on the lake. But I will say, he doesn't live up north.
Anyways. I don't remember where we left off. Okay. The Dursleys got into bed. Miss Dursley fell asleep quickly, but Mr. Dursley lay awake, turning it all over in his mind. His last comforting thought before he fell asleep was that even if the Potters were involved, there was no reason for them to come near him or Miss Dursley. The Potters knew very well what he and Petunia thought about them and their kind. He couldn't see how he and Petunia could get mixed up in anything. That might be, oh my god. Anything that might be going on. He yawned and turned over. This couldn't affect them. However, he was very wrong. Mr. Dursley might have been drifting off into an uneasy sleep, but the cat sitting on the wall was showing no signs of sleepiness. It was sitting as still as a statue, its eyes fixed unblinking on the far corner of Privet Drive. It didn't so much as quiver when the door slammed on the next street, nor when two owls swooped overhead. In fact, it was nearly midnight before the cat moved at all. A man appeared on the corner. The cat had been watching, appeared so suddenly and silently, you'd have thought he'd just popped out of the ground. The cat's tail twitched and its eyes narrowed. Nothing like this man had ever been seen before on Privet Drive. He was tall, thin, and very old, judging by the silver of his hair and beard, which were both long enough to tuck into his belt. He was wearing long robes, a purple cloak, and that swept the ground. Oh my god, sorry. And high-heeled... a purple cloak that swept the ground and high-heeled buckled boots. His blue eyes were light, bright, and sparkling behind half-moon spectacles, and his nose was very long and crooked, as though it had been broken at least twice. This man was named Albus Dumbledore. Albus Dumbledore didn't seem to realize that he had just arrived in a street where everything from his name to his boots was unwelcomed. He was busy rummaging in his cloak, looking for something. He didn't seem to realize he was being watched, because he looked up suddenly at the cat, which was still staring at him from the front of the other street. For some reason, the sight of the cat seemed to amuse him. He chuckled and muttered, "I should have known." He found what he was looking for inside his pocket. It seemed to be a silver cigarette lighter. He flicked it open, held it up in the air, and clicked it. The nearest street lamp went out with a little pop. He clicked it again. The next lamp flickered into darkness. 12 times he clicked the put outer until the only lights left on the whole street were two tiny pinprickers in the distance, which were the eyes of the cat watching him. If anyone looked out of their window now, even beady-eyed Miss Dursley wouldn't be able to see anything that was happening down on the pavement. Wow, we're struggling. Dumbledore slipped the put-outer back inside his coat and sat down the street toward number 4, where he sat down on the wall next to the cat. He didn't look at it, but after a moment he spoke to it. "Fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall." He turned to smile at the tabby, but it had gone. Instead, he was smiling at a rather severe-looking woman who was wearing square glasses exactly the shape of the markings on the cat and had around its eyes. She, too, was wearing a cloak, an emerald one. Her black hair was drawn into a tight bun. She looked distinctly ruffled. "How did you know it was me?" she said. "My dear professor, I've never seen a cat sit so stiffly." "You'd be stiff if you'd been sitting on a brick wall all day," said Professor McGonagall. "All day? When when you could have been celebrating? I must have passed a dozen feasts and parties on my way here." Professor McGonagall sniffed angrily. "Oh, yes, everyone's celebrating, all right," she said impatiently. "You'd think they'd be a bit more careful, but no. Even the Muggles have noticed something's going on. It was on the news." She jerked her head back at the Dursleys' dark living room window. "I heard it. Flocks of owls shooting stars. Well, they're not completely stupid. They were bound to notice something. Shooting stars down in Kent. It would be a I bet that it would be a I bet that was a Daedalus Dingle. Daedalus Dingle? I bet that was Daedalus Dingle. He never had much sense." "You can't blame them," said Dumbledore gently. We've had precious little to celebrate for 11 years. "I know that," Professor McGonagall said irritably, "but that's no reason to lose our heads. People are being downright careless out on the streets in broad daylight, not even dressed in Muggle clothing, swapping rumors." She threw a sharp side glance at Dumbledore here, as though hoping he was going to tell her something, but he didn't. So she went on. "A fine thing it would be if on the very day you know who seems to have disappeared at last, the Muggles found out all about all of us. I suppose he really has gone. Really has gone, Dumbledore?" "It certainly seems so," said Dumbledore. "We have very much to be thankful for. Would you care for a lemon drop?" "A what?" "A lemon drop. They're a kind of Muggle sweet I'm rather fond of."